I'm going to bring us a message this morning called On the Other Side. On the other side. Now, they say when you live in a glass house, don't throw stones. And I'm going to tell a blonde joke right now, but I just want to preempt, I'm blonde this far and brunette this far. So I have the, what's it called, culturally, you can't say things if you're not one or the other, culturally sensitive ability to say these jokes. So there was a brunette lady on one side of the road, and she had a blonde friend on the other side of the road. And the brunette yelled out to her blonde friend and said, "Hey, how do I get to the other side?" And the blonde yelled back, "You are on the other side." It's all about perspective. It's all about perspective. Sorry, it's a bit of a mix of a dad joke, bit of a mix of a blonde joke. It's everything's mixed in there, but perspective. We all like this idea of being on the other side, and no matter where we are on the other side of something. It was great to be able to celebrate last week the 80th birthday of Lani and Heather this week on the other side of 80, on the other side of 20, on the other side of 30. We're all at some point in our life, even right now, on the other side of something else. Maybe it's a big other side. Maybe it's a home or a marriage or a relationship. We are on the other side of this goal. We are on the other side of this target. And now that we're on the other side, we find out that there's obstacles on the other side. We're looking forward to the other side, but we get there and there's obstacles. There's things to face. It's a very exciting Sunday for myself as it's the first Sunday as the lead pastor of this church, and it's been a season of unexpecteds, and today really does mark the first of an on the other side moment for myself, and I'm excited to be in that moment. But I'm not naive enough to know that that moment is not going to be without opposition. It's not going to be without troubles and trials, but it is going to be with many mountaintop experiences that we're going to get to share together. In the process of candidating to be the pastor here, I got to share with the membership of the church the call of God on my life and a bit of my testimony. So I want to do that with you all this morning and just share a little bit about what God's been doing in my life over the last, 20 years. It's been about 20 years now that I've been involved in ministry and serving, and 11 of those have been on staff. In 2009, I've got a photo here of the Bakss family in 2009. There we are. Annalise was just born, and we've got our lovely little twins there, and Gracelyn and Annalise, and that beautiful woman in the middle is my wife, Alice. 2009, God had begun to stir in me a passion for ministry and placed on my life a call to ministry. And at that point, I thought, ministry, yes, that's something I can get behind. That's something that I'm passionate about. I love seeing things developed. I love seeing people being given opportunity to serve in their church. I'd love to be part of that. And then 2010 rolled around, and this was us in 2010, a little bigger, a little more grown. But it was in this season that God provided an opportunity for myself to become on part-time staff here at the church. Prior to all of this happening, and this is just the power of the way that God works in bringing us to the other side. I'd been studying at university during this time to be an accountant, and was working for a few companies in town doing their books and working in the field of finance. And in that, my brother-in-law had developed, and it was very, very artistic. He was a videographer, a musician, and he had moved to Rockhampton. And we had a great idea of him starting and us starting a wedding video business in which I could manage the business side and he could manage the creative side. The business took off really, really quickly, and this was 2008, 2009. And we needed more creatives. So I started trying my hand at the creative arts, at editing, at photography. Prior to that, had never touched those things, had never considered those things. In fact, my drawings look awful. If you want me to draw something, ask somebody else. I'm not a good drawer. And we discovered very quickly that it was something I enjoyed and it was something that I had a gift at. That then opened the door for a part-time employment here at the church, editing a magazine. And as I look back and can see the handprints of God, the fingerprints of God, step by step, He led me into accountancy. Then He led me into managing a magazine and editing a magazine, both the skills that He had placed me in were useful in that season. And that season then also corresponded in 2013 with full-time employment and a real active part in our leadership team. And here we are, crossed over. This is us this year as a family at Everybody Sunday. And God has continued to work in and through those seasons in my life. In 2018, there was this call of God on my life to ministry, and I love the idea of ministry. But previous to 2018, God had really started to specify what that call was. And I had known and been prompted through His Word and through a passion and through confirmation of other counselors that the Lord was calling me to pastor a church. And that for me was pretty scary. I liked the idea of being in ministry, of serving, of being part of a team. But the idea of pastoring a church is something that I had witnessed firsthand in the home of a pastor. I had seen the amount of time, I had seen the amount of effort, I had seen the different things that come into a family as the head of the house, as the father of the house led a church. And that to me was a very daunting and challenging task to consider. So I struggled with surrendering to that call. And 2017, coming into 2018, was a very barren time in my faith. I was saying no to the Lord on a very clear calling that He had, and it got really dry. It got really barren, and things just dried up. The word wasn't penetrating. The worship was just noise, and I would seek God about it, and I would know what the answer was. And in 2018, I came and knelt at the altar up here and finally surrendered to that call of God on my life. I just laid it at the altar and said, God, it's yours. I'm yours. I want you to use me. And I want to respond to this call. A month after that, Alice's health just plummeted. And it was one of those moments where I said, one of those why God moments. I finally surrendered and worship was good again, and I was in your word, and it was feeding me again. And then Alice's health just went downhill. She very quickly had to move to Brisbane, and that started the process for her to go on the transplant list and need and receive an organ transplant. But in the midst of that, in the midst of me needing to move to Brisbane to be her carer for a period of time, God gave to me and revealed to me and sharpened and clarified a vision and a calling on my life as to what that church would look like that He would get me and allow me to lead. And I still did not know where that was. I just knew what it was. God calls you to a function, not to a place. God calls you to a function, not to a field. And if you are pursuing any call of God on your life, that is an important thing to note, that you are called to a function, not to a field. Don't be looking for where you can do that or that distant place until you start to do that. Start doing the thing which God has called you to do. Start heading in that direction. And that is what we continue to do. At the end of last year, I shared with our team in our team rally this morning, I was up here on stage and we had our New Year's Eve party, which we have another one coming up this year. So if you're young at heart or a young adult, either which way, that can be 90s plus. No, it doesn't matter. If you want to come praise and pray your way into the new year, this 31st of December we'll be doing that. But last December, just past, we did that. And the song that we sung into the new year was a song called Shadow Step. And I remember standing up here and Josh was playing the clip just the other day, and the chorus of that song says, ready for the unexpected, ready for what you will do next. And Josh was playing that clip and I was getting real excited about it, ready for the unexpected. And now I'm standing here in the unexpected, still excited, but I was saying to our worship team, maybe this year, I want to be a millionaire. Maybe we sing that. Maybe we sing that. This vision, let's change it up a little bit. Let's maybe not be ready for the unexpected next year. But God has done what only God can do, and I'm so grateful to be now on the other side. On the other side. All right, let's look at what the Word has to say for us this morning. Joshua is the book that we're in today, Joshua chapter 4. So if you want to find that this morning, please do so. Joshua chapter 4. Joshua 4 and 5. The other side can be two things. The other side can be harmful because there is unknowns. We need to be ready for the unexpected. There can be things that are going to come up against us and be harmful, but the other side too is full of hope. We don't head to another side without the promise of hope. There's no point going there if we don't think it's going to have any benefit to us. So the other side is full of potential harm, but also full of hope. And it is the difference between these two that creates the tension and a need for us to be able to navigate the other side. The whole concept of the grass being greener on the other side is one that I'd say most of us are familiar with. The grass is greener on the other side. We like the idea of going a place that's more luscious, more provisions. And when you think about the grass being greener on the other side, I can think of 4 reasons why the grass would be greener on the other side. The first would be that someone's paying quite a large water bill. There's a cost involved in it. The second would be that there's a number of rainy days. And rainy days are beautiful, but they reduce productivity. It always rains on the day that you want to go fishing, or it always rains on the day that you needed to mow the lawn. They reduce productivity, but they produce a green grass. The third option that I can see would be it's fake grass. And fake grass looks good, but it's not what you thought it was. And that's not always something that we want to discover when we get there. Oh, this wasn't what I thought it was. And the fourth reason that I can see as to why the grass would be greener on the other side is a leaking sewage pipe. I don't know if you've ever had that situation where one patch of your grass is very, very green, and it tends to be around a certain pipe that comes out the side of your house. It has a bit of a stink about it, but there's green grass. And what I want to get across to this morning is there is always a cost. There is always something on the other side that is making that grass greener. There will always be opposition. There'll always be something that we come up against. So as I mentioned earlier, houses, relationships, careers, study. We've all gone through these things, and we've finally it's coming to the end of the year 12s. You're about to go to the other side of your education. You might be entering into uni. It's the other side. And on that other side, I want to give you 5 things that I can see here this morning in Joshua that are going to help you navigate the other side. The first of those 5 things, the 5 ways that we can navigate the other side, is please walk wisely. Walk wisely. In verse number 2 of chapter number 4, it says this: "Take you 12 men out of the people, out of every tribe a man." And the first thing that I see here is a unity. I see a unity and a togetherness. And Joshua, when he was talking about honoring the things that were happening and about to happen, he makes a specific mention of there being one representative from every tribe. When you walk wisely, recognize that you're doing life with others. Doing life with others. And Proverbs 16 tells us that it's a man's heart that devises his way, but God directs his steps. So in the process of allowing God to direct your steps, when you're on the other side, be very, very conscious to walk wisely. Recognize that you're doing it with others. Recognize that there needs to be a togetherness and a unity, one from every tribe. And verse number 3 in Joshua 4 says, "And command ye them, saying, Take you hence out of the midst of the Jordan, out of the place where the priest's feet stood firm." Right at the center of this miracle of them crossing the Jordan River, right at the very center of that was the priests holding the Ark of the Covenant. And I can see here a centeredness. Not only is there to be a togetherness in our steps, but there ought to be a balance and a centeredness in the steps that we take. If we're allowing God to direct our steps, some of the hallmarks of steps that God will direct you in will be 1, togetherness and unity, and 2, it'll be a centeredness and a balance. Is this centered? Is this balanced? Is this wise? And is it Christ-centered? Right in the middle, these guys stood. And as that verse just highlights there, the priest's feet stood firm. When you walk on the other side, when you step into the other side, know what it is that you believe. Be firm on that. Be firm on that. I think it's Katy Perry that says, if you stand for nothing, you'll fall for everything. And she's very much so right on that. It is important that you walk wisely, that you plant your feet, that you have a firmness and a truth and a rightness about the way that you step. And in this idea of walking wisely, consider the timing of God. Consider the timing of God. Verse number 19 Verse number 19, just over a page, says, "And the people came up out of the Jordan on the 10th day of the first month and encamped in Gilgal in the eastern border of Jericho." Those of you that are Sunday school graduates, you've been through Sunday school. How many years did the children of Israel have to wander in the wilderness? It was a certain number of years. Ready, set, go? 40 years. They wandered for 40 years. If we go back to Numbers 33:3, I want you to see something here. Numbers 33:3 says, "And they departed from Ramses in the first month on the 15th day of the first month." Which day did they depart? Try that again. On the 15th day of the first month. Which day did they depart? On the 15th. It's Sunday. Which day did they depart? On the 15th. Yes. Woo. How good was the worship this morning? I love that. Man, I love some of those songs. Shout to the Lord. That's a golden oldie. I was remembering back to when I got to serve in ministry, that some of the earliest days of me serving in ministry was as the worship leader, the song leader, and my song of choice was "Saved by the Blood." Does anyone remember "Saved by the Blood"? Yeah. We used to sing some great songs, but there was a song that we used to sing, "There is a fountain filled with blood drawn from Emmanuel's veins." And some of those songs without context would really freak out a first-timer. Like imagine the music video for that song, "There is a fountain filled with blood." But there was such incredible truth in these songs. And I used to remember singing "Glory to His Name," "Saved by the Blood." And you know, if you were part of that era, it was me up front and you would lead, you'd keep everyone in time. But it was a lot of fun. "Saved by the blood of the crucified one, now ransomed from sin and a new work begun. Sing praise to the Father, sing praise to the Son." Does anyone know it? Just me. "Saved by the blood of the crucified one." Ready? "Glory, I'm saved. Glory, I'm saved. I'm saved by the..." No, I've forgotten it already. Sorry, I remember part of it, but I loved it. Maybe we should bring it back. "Saved by the blood of the crucified one." What? Where have I gone? What am I doing? 15th. It was on the 15th day. So we're coming back over to Joshua 4, verse 19. And what does it say in verse 19? "And the people came up out of the Jordan on the which day? The 10th day." On the 10th day. So they left Egypt on the 15th day of the first month, and they came up out of the Jordan into the promised land on the 10th day of the first month. Can anybody see a discrepancy here? Any mathematicians? Jonah, how many days short are we? 15, 10. 5. Our math teacher is nodding. You guys were correct. They entered the promised land 5 days short of the 40 years. And I believe this is another instance where God is reminding to us 5 in Scripture is significant because it is the number of grace. It is the number of grace. And as you head into the other side, and if you do that with Christ at the center, there's going to be a grace to that crossing. There's going to be a grace to that process. And 5 days short of their 40 years that they were meant to spend in the wilderness, God allows His children to come into the promised land. What a powerful thing. What a powerful truth that is to remind us that He is gracious, that He is good. And if we walk wisely and let His grace guide us, that we can do so and we can use that as a way to navigate the other side. What is it that the Lord is directing us to do? The second way that we can navigate the other side is to expect the best and prepare for the battle. Expect the best and prepare for the battle. Proverbs 21:31 says, "The horse is prepared against the day, but safety is in the Lord." It is wise for us to expect the best because safety is in the Lord, but to prepare for the battle. Here's what it says in verse number 13 and what happened. About 40,000 prepared for war passed over before the Lord unto battle to the plains of Jericho. Joshua had prepared his men for battle. They knew that God was going to lead them across. They knew that God was giving them the promised land, but they were also prepared for battle. One of the lies and one of the things that we so often find ourselves believing incorrectly is that as a child of God, I am going to not have problems. I'm not going to have battles. If God's led me to this place, then it's going to be all roses and it's going to be all fantastic. And yes, it will be in some sense, but God doesn't promise. Here's what God promises, and here's what it says in John 16:33. These things I have spoken unto you, that ye might have peace in the world. Ye shall have tribulation, but be of good cheer. I have overcome the world. He says he's spoken these things unto us, that in me ye might have peace. What God promises is an abundance of peace, not an absence of problems. God promises an abundance of peace, not an absence of problems. Problems will come, it says. In the world there shall be tribulation. So don't let the problems of your other side discourage you. Don't let them sideline you, because there will be problems on the other side. So one of the ways that we can navigate the other side is to expect the best. Safety is in the Lord, but to be prepared for battle. In 2010, when I stepped into this call of ministry on my life, I couldn't even imagine the transplant season, the season that we've just gone through as a church. Those things have been intense and incredible battles. But I can stand here this morning and say that God has been victorious, that God has more for us, and that there is better days ahead. And God has proven himself not once, not twice, but many times in my life. And I would believe in this room there would be many of you that too could put up a hand and say, God has proven himself good time and time again, battle after battle. Bigger problems, bigger lessons, bigger blessings. God promises an abundance of peace, not an absence of problems. One of the things that God has taught me to pray over the years is not that he would keep my children in a bubble, not that he would keep them from trouble, because the Bible says that's going to come. And I think about David. If David's father had kept him wrapped up and he never confronted the bear and he never confronted the lion and he never went to see his brothers and confronted Goliath, those victories, those moments where he saw God's strength true in him would never have been realized. If Esther didn't have a Haman, would she have been the woman for such a time as this? We need those things. My prayer for my children is not that they be put in a bubble, but that God would keep them humble and make them fast learners. My prayer for you as our church is that God would keep us humble and make you fast learners. Learn quickly. Learn the things that God is teaching us in and through the troubles, because they will come. And as you learn, please access the peace that passeth all understanding. It is the key that is going to help you navigate the other side. Number 3, the next thing that we can use to navigate the other side is allow yourself to be made whole. Allow yourself to be made whole. The Israelites had a custom. They had a covenant that they would make with God. And as they left Egypt and wandered for 40 years, there was a number of young men that were born, and that custom was not able to be followed. When they entered the promised land, the Bible records that custom being reinstated. And these young men came forward, and there was a ceremony that they went through in order for that custom to be honored. And that custom involved a cutting away. It involved, in some senses, a shedding of blood. And there was a cutting away that happened. And what I want to encourage you on is this morning that as you cross over to the other side, as you are in this moment on the other side, you need to allow yourself to be made whole. Is there something that has come with you from the previous side? Maybe it's a bitterness, maybe it's a hurt, maybe it's a habit, maybe it's a hang-up that is going to limit your ability to be fruitful on the other side. Whatever that is, allow yourself to be made whole. And I can tell you that a cutting away is not always comfortable. It is not always pleasant, but it is necessary in order for fruit to be born on the other side. As you make your way to the other side, the scripture records it like this, Joshua 5:8. And it came to pass, when they had done circumcising all the people, they that abode in their place in the camp, that they abode in their place in the camp till they were made whole. And the Bible talks about this being a place where there was this cutting away, but they also allowed themselves the time to heal. They allowed themselves the time to heal. After Annalise was born, I had a small surgery done, and it coincided with a car out the front of our house, one of our cars being sideswiped, and the driver's side of that car was all smashed in and you couldn't access that side of the car. And I got home from that surgery and there was a big one of those lovely yellow stickers on the back of your car saying police aware, and it said remove from road, otherwise we will remove it for you. And I couldn't get into the driver's side. So rather than calling my brothers or calling somebody for help, rather than allowing myself time to be made whole, I decided to climb into the passenger seat, climb over the gear stick, tear open my stitches, move the car into the yard, climb back over, also do more damage to my stitches, and spent a good 2 weeks that I didn't need to spend allowing myself to be made whole because I didn't reach out for help. I didn't give myself the space to be made whole. And as things need to be cut away in your lives in these seasons of being on the other side, remember that you have a church. Remember that you have people that love you, and we want to help you in the process of being made whole. We don't want to be there to be judging you and to be saying, well, you should have done it this way, you should have done it that way. We need to be a church that is there for each other and allows each other the space and the time to be made whole. This then flows over to verse number 9 and our fourth way that we can help navigate these things, and that is, let shame be rolled away. And the Lord said unto Joshua, this day, this is verse number 9 of Joshua 4, and the Lord said unto Joshua, this day I have rolled away the reproach of Egypt from you. Wherefore the name of the place is called Gilgal unto this day. I have rolled away the reproach, the shame of Egypt from you. It was after this cutting away had happened. He said, hey, now that this has happened, there needs to be, you do not need the shame. The shame of what's happened in the past is behind you. Here's what we need to understand. In order for there to be another side, there will have been a cause. Maybe something's happened in your life that's resulted in, I need to do this better. I need to get to this point. Maybe there's been a cost, but all of those things can bring with them a shame and a guilt. And on the way to there being and needing to be another side, there will be mistakes made. Mistakes have been made. Things have happened along the way. And I love that song, In the Father's House. Leave your shame at the door, it ain't welcome anymore. That's it, church. There needs to be a Gilgal in our lives. A place that we can come to where the presence of God is. Gilgal was this temporary place that they set up the tabernacle. And in that place was the Ark of the Covenant representing the presence of God. It was a place where this cutting away had happened, where God said, your shame is rolled away. That ought to be our church. That ought to be your lives. You ought to be a Gilgal for others. You ought to be a place that others can come and can help in the process of being made whole. You ought to be a place that they can come and experience the presence of God. This church ought to be a place that you can come week after week. This ought to be a Gilgal for you. A place where your shame can be rolled away, where you can be reminded of the goodness of God. And as you navigate your other side, don't go into that with shame. I love the fact that as Jeremy preached a few weeks ago, the message of crossing over. It said that they came to the banks of the Jordan and they waited for 3 days. How many days did they wait? 3 days. We're getting better. Good. 3 days. They waited for 3 days. And then what did God do? He rolled back. He rolled back the waters of the Jordan and they walked through on dry land. I love how this is so pictorial of the life that we get to now live in Christ. For 3 days there was a flooding river. For 3 days there was an empty tomb. And like that song, Graves into Gardens says, he turns graves into gardens. He turns seas into highways. He's the only one who can. He's the only one who can. And just like they waited 3 days on the other side and rolled those waters away, they walked through. And they walked through 5 days shy of their 40 years because of the grace of our God, because of the goodness of our God. And the Bible says in verse number 18 here, I want you to see this. And it came to pass when the priests that bear the ark of the covenant of the Lord will come up out of the midst of the Jordan, and their soles of the priests' feet were lifted up onto dry land, that the waters of the Jordan returned unto their place and flowed over all his banks as they did before. The Jordan was still flooding when those priests stepped their feet out of that dry riverbed and the waters continued to flow. It said, as they were before. But church, I want to tell you that that flooded river, that raging problem was now behind them and not before them. When it was before them, God gave them 3 days. And at the end of those 3 days, He rolled it away. So I want to remind you this morning, no matter which side of the river you are on, if you're on the side that is yet to come, you haven't got to the other side and there's this raging river before you, we serve a God that can turn seas into highways. We serve a God that can turn graves into gardens. And I want to encourage you to wait out your 3 days. And by the grace of God, you will cross over. But here's what I want you to do. When you get to the other side, that river's going to return and that river's going to rage. But it's behind you. That raging river is going to be behind you. Head forward. There is enough battles in front of you to worry about the ones that are behind you. God has been good behind us, and I can tell you 100% that God is going to be good before us. So let's be heading in that direction, and let's let our shame be rolled away. Let's not be a church that adds to shame, but let's be a church that allows that to be rolled away. And our fifth and last tool, our fifth and last way to navigate the other side is found in Joshua 5. In Joshua 5, at the end of this encounter, Joshua 5, verse 13 and 14, and here's what it says. And it came to pass when Joshua was by Jericho that he lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, there stood a man over against him with his sword drawn in his hand. And Joshua went out unto him and said unto him, Art thou for us or for our adversaries? And the angel of the Lord, and he said, Nay, but as the captain of the host of the Lord am I now come. So Joshua runs out to this guy, and obviously there's enemies in the land, and Joshua was aware of that. They were prepared for battle. And he runs up to this man holding a sword and says, Are you for us or are you for our adversaries? And the angel of the Lord, God here says, No. If I asked him a question, am I good looking or am I not good looking? And he says no, that's a bad example because he's actually answering the question. If I say, are you for me or are you for Josh, Eli? And you say no, then we don't know who Eli's for. That's a better example. But this is the situation that's occurred. And what I get from this is that there's 3 sides to every story. And our fifth step to navigating the other side is choosing the right side. Choosing the right side. You know the saying, there's 2 sides to every story? This here reveals to us that there's 3 sides to every story. And a lot of times we as the church and we as Christians think, well, I'm a Christian, so therefore I'm on the right side. But I want to remind you that you have the old man in you, that you have selfishness, that you have the flesh in you. And no matter how hard we try, it is present. And what I believe the Lord is saying here to Joshua is, no, I'm not on your side. No, I'm not on their side. Are you on my side? That's why he says no. And Joshua at the end of his book, if you remember, choose you this day whom you will serve. But as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. Because Joshua learnt to choose the right side. And not to just by default say, well, I'm a Christian and I've heard the word of the Lord on this, so I'm on the right side. Therefore, you have to do what I say, you have to do what I want. And in that, we create a bit of disunity. It creates opportunity for opposition to get bigger and badder. And I believe what God is saying to us here is choose the right side. Truth is always truth. Your truth is your truth, but truth is always truth. Make sure when we're navigating the other side that we choose the right side. The children of Israel needed God just as much as they needed Him on the other side as they did now in the promised land. And now, while we as a church are on the other side, there's a new season lying right ahead of us. You as grade 12s are entering into the other side of your education. Maybe you've just moved to town. Maybe you've just started a new job and it's the other side for you. I encourage you to consider these 5 things as you navigate the other side. But one of the most important things that I ask you to consider is setting up your Gilgal. Setting up your place where things can be rolled away, where the presence of God is, your quiet time, your opportunity to reach out and to reach into the will of God for your life. That place where your steps can be guided, where you can say, Lord, I think this is a way that I can go. Would you open up an opportunity for me to step in that direction? Let Him direct your steps. Have a Gilgal. What we tend to do is we get to the other side and we run headlong to Jericho. Where's the next battle? Let's go get it. This is ours. We're in the promised land. And we run headlong to a wall that is fortified. And we sit there just banging on a big wall. Then we get discouraged on the other side. And I want to put to you that maybe the reason you're discouraged on the other side and not doing anything on the other side now that you're there is because you haven't set up your Gilgal. You haven't set up your temporary camp of transition. That place where you can go to the presence of the Lord. Because you're on the other side. I've been planning for this house for years. We've been planning for this marriage for years, and now we're here and she snores. And she does. But it's melodious. Set up a Gilgal. Is your Gilgal established? On that place that they called Gilgal, which was a hill where that ceremonial act was taking place and the blood was shed, Gilgal also shares a root word with another word, another place that was a hill. That place is Golgotha. And every single one of us in this room have access to the thing that happened on that place, to the blood that was shed on that place, and it was shed for each and every one of us in this room this morning, so that we can get to the other side and so that we can navigate it full of peace, full of purpose, and full of direction. And this is what Joshua is encouraging us to do. Hey, there is another side, there is a promised land, but make sure you're accessing it through your Gilgal. Make sure you're accessing it through a place where you can seek the presence of God, where you can seek His direction, where you can let your shame be rolled away, and where you choose to walk on the right side.